Do you all know that India is world's third largest energy consumer and oil consumer? Yes, we don't just need the oil. We are addicted to it. Every year, India consumes about 5 million barrels of oil per day. But here is the catch, we produce almost none of it. India imports more than 85% of its oil needs from abroad. In the year 2024-2025, India imported about 1.4 billion barrels of crude oil, that is about 139 crore barrels of oil in a year, which is more than combined total oil production in a year of the world's top two producers. For decades, India bought oil from our Middle East neighbors, but in the year 2022, everything changed. Especially after the Russia Ukraine war, G7 countries imposed price cap on Russian oil. India suddenly increased its oil demand from Russia. Why did we do it? And why US, who initially asked us to buy Russian oil, is now throwing a $2 trillion tantrum on it? Let's decode the oil diplomacy in geopolitics. Welcome back to Know Things. To understand the oil diplomacy in geopolitics, we need to understand 4 points regarding oil: the quantity or supply, the demand, the freight, and the cost. Let's talk about the quantity, that is, the supply of the world's crude oil. If we see the list of top producers of crude oil in the world, the top three are USA, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. USA produces about zero point 0.8 billion barrels of oil in a year, while Russia and Saudi produce just more than zero point 0.5 billion barrels in a year. And the country which was highlighted in the recent US India trade deal, Venezuela, produces just zero point zero 0.05 billion barrels in a year. No two of the three top oil producing countries can quench the thirst of either India or China. These are the two countries which import majority of the oil in the world. So what is the demand? If we see the list of top three energy consumers in the world, they are number one China, number two United States, and number three India. Speaking of import reliance, India imports about 40% of its energy requirements and China 25% and USA almost nil. But that is different from the oil demand. The top three oil consumers in the world are USA, China, and India. But USA relies only about 40% of its imports and China about 70%. But India relies more than 85% of its oil requirements on imports. Factor number three is the freight or the logistics, which happens in either shipping or pipelines. Shipping isn't just about weight, it's about space and time. To understand the oil trade, you have to understand one simple rule of the ocean, that is, density versus distance. Crude oil is like a gold bar. It is heavy, dense, and compact. You can fit millions of dollars of it in one small space. But gas is like a cotton candy, fluffy, and occupies more space for the given amount of weight. So it takes up all the space of the suitcase. So the golden rule is you can afford to ship gold bars from halfway across the world because the product is worth more than the shipping cost. But you can only afford to ship cotton candy from your neighbors because shipping it for long distances costs more than the gas itself.
By the seven seas, what is this fluffy nonsense? Remove it immediately, or I'll feed it to the fishes.
That is why India's strategy is split. We buy cheap oil from faraway places like Russia, but we buy gas only from our nearby sources. We are saying cheap oil, cheap oil. So that brings us to the factor number four, the cost. Russian oil is cheap. How cheap? It is coming at 30% discount from the year 2022 after the price cap imposed by the G7 countries in the wake of Russia-Ukraine war. So Russian oil is 30% cheap than the oil bought from elsewhere in the world, and the buyers are almost exclusively China and India. It takes about 30 to 40 days for oil to come from Russia to India, while it takes only about 3 to 4 days to transport oil from Gulf countries to India, like Saudi Arabia or Iraq. So, why Russian oil? Though it's a long trip, Russia is selling its oil at 30% discount. Back in 2022, when oil prices were hovering around $100 a barrel, we are getting a $30 discount per barrel. That is huge. This price cap is imposed by the G7 countries to cut Russian profits and revenue from the oil and to avoid Russia from spending the money into the Russia Ukraine war. Why not ban it? If they ban the oil, that will lead to skyrocketing of the oil prices that were already touching the roofs. Someone has to buy Russian oil to keep the supply demand equilibrium optimum and check the oil prices. The $30 per barrel discount is really huge. But India didn't buy Russian gas. because of the cotton candy philosophy we discussed earlier. So we bought Russian oil for about 30 to 40% of our requirement, rest of it from the other routine sources, and we bought gas from Qatar and Saudi.